Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 109. On this latest episode, we're going to give you our match and player analysis of Wolves' 2-2 draw with Crystal Palace. We're going to talk about the self-inflicted mess that we currently find ourselves in at the moment, take your question and look ahead to the enormous game against Southampton on Saturday afternoon. To help guide us through and give us some sanity and some balance, delighted to welcome Noki before we spent a month in Dubai scouting for new recruits for the Wolves Report. Good evening, Noki. Straight to business. Appreciate you joining us this evening, or for whoever's listening on catch up. Just to let you know, it's available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and will be on Spotify as well. So you might not be listening in the evening. Noki, there's a lot of hope going into Saturday afternoon's game against Crystal Palace. I think you and Tyler are a little less optimistic than I was. I thought Wolves would win. I was wrong, but it was 2-2, and I would love to get your take on Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Crystal Palace 2.
Yeah, I think I said on the podcast it stunk of a 1-1 because of the way we were playing. And I thought there's some positives to take from the game, but certainly not in the first half. I thought the first half was absolutely abysmal. It felt very negative. I don't think the lads really knew what they were doing. The system didn't seem to work. I didn't agree with Sarabia coming in. We spoke about that last week, but I didn't think it was the right decision to bring someone who's barely had a kick into a game that I think was must win. So it was a disappointing first half. Bearing in mind Palace were missing Eza, Wharton, and another kid in midfield, Jefferson Lerma. You know, I thought there could have been a couple of goals up very, very quickly. There was a big opportunity where Chalobah's managed to air shot an opportunity from 3 yards out, and then he's managed to block the shot that was flying into the back of the net. It should have been 1-0, and then they had a couple of opportunities on the edge of the area that they probably should have scored, and then there was a header over as well from the 6-yard box. So there should have been, for me, a couple of goals up at half-time. We had one chance, which was Sarabia. I'm not going to hammer him too much for it because I think he was caught in two minds as to whether to go around the goalkeeper or whether to try and lift it over him, and it's one of those things, it happens. But we just didn't seem to have any kind of grip in the game. The right-hand side in particular, I thought was really, really exposed. Every time we had the ball in that area, we were looking for an outball. There was nothing there. So I was expecting him to change that at half-time and make a little bit of a switch, maybe bring Guedes on or Forbes and just try and give us a little bit something on the wide positions for us to hit. He chose not to do that until we were a goal down. I mean, in fairness, he was making those subs when the ball hit the back of the net, but it was still far too late for me. That should have happened at half-time. We give away another really, really poor goal. Another set piece where we just not picked up the runners again, and they've been able to get themselves a lead. I mean, I thought the whole thing was a real mess. You could hear the call from Sarr. Unfortunately, Larsson heads it anyway, which if he's not 100% sure, then maybe that's the right thing to do. But when you can hear your goalkeeper screaming like that, you should just get out of the way. But even when the ball runs to Chalobah, no one steams back to the goal line. We all just stand around and watch him slap it in, and he's only got a little bit of the goal to aim at. If someone drops back, we probably clear that. So it's another poor goal. And the really frustrating thing for me is we scored two absolutely brilliant goals. I thought they were top draw movement, the passing, the way that we cut inside them and we swapped them. We just found those little intricate moments. It was absolutely brilliant. Both goals were superb. Then we go and throw another one in from a corner, and I think it was our sixth goal that we've conceded from a corner. Again, it's a far post effort. It's not even a header from a far post. It's a simple flick on. He's tapped it in at knee height. And then, last minute of the game, at the time, I thought the disallowed goal was probably a little bit harsh, but having looked back at it, and the letter of the law says that it was a foul, so that turns out to be the right decision. But it was disappointing. It was... It just the same. It's the same old thing, isn't it? We've forgotten how to win. We've forgotten how to see a game out. And as soon as we went 2-1 up, everyone just dropped back, and we were just inviting pressure again. So I thought it'd be a draw, but I can't help but be disappointed that it was.
Yeah, particularly Noki from another winning position. Obviously, you go a goal down. Molyneux felt flat and hurt then because, I'm not sure they were peppering us, but again, it looked like an avoidable goal. But to be 2-1 up to again, well, I say again, but only to get a point. I mean, we were winning against Villa, winning against Newcastle. These games, when you're ahead in, you're expecting more. So to get back at a point, I don't think it's enough. Particularly as you mentioned earlier on, Adam Wharton, Eze, Lerma. That's a lot of quality in the middle of the pitch gone for them. And I can't even say that the draw was unfair. I think in the end, Palace had more shots on target, but I think on the balance of play, a point was probably fair. I can't really come away saying I'm frustrated that we didn't win like I have done in other games, but it's about right. But look, let's talk about the selection to start with. I mean, we
could just come back on. Sorry, mate, I don't want to cut across you, but just on you saying the draw is probably fair. I agree, the draw is fair. I think the difference is that there's some games where we've had a little bit of an excuse. You know, we've been able to kind of blame VAR. We've been able to blame that it's a difficult run. This felt like a game where probably everyone realised just how deep in trouble we are, because you took three best players out of their team, and arguably they're three of the best. Certainly two of them are. If you imagine if we took Cunha and say João Gomez out of our team, we wouldn't have got a result against Palace. We'd have got beat. So for them to come and really boss the first half, were well in it the second half, should have got a result. It just shows you how poor we actually are at the moment, and whether that's a reflection on the manager or the selection or whatever it may be. It maybe gave everyone a little bit of an exclamation point that we're in a bit of trouble. And I think that was reflected with the crowd as well, because the crowd was flat. That Molineux would have been horrible a few years ago if we'd have gone a goal down against Palace with everything that's going on. But there's almost an acceptance now that we're just waiting for the inevitable, is how it felt in the ground.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that, Nocky. The stadium and the atmosphere has been an issue for a while, and it's hard, isn't it? Because that's very much that's a very much a relationship thing. You can't expect relentless support if you're not getting something. You need something on the pitch as well. Now, not for a moment am I questioning the team's desire, and that I think that's the one part at the moment that we can't be disappointed with. Granting there's players who are confidence down. I still believe it looks like to me that players are hurting, and it looks like they're giving their all. I mean, particularly look at Cunha, João Gomez. These guys are coming off really, really upset. And I want them to be as well, because one, it's their job, and I want them to be getting everything for the badge. I do think they are. I just think, as you mentioned in the first half, they're not really, I don't know if they're a bit confused or not believing in the plan. I don't know what it is, but understandably, no wins this season. Confidence will be low. But the one thing I want to talk about to start off, not particularly his performance, but the selection of Sarabia that you mentioned now. People are mentioning in terms of there's always a fall guy or it's someone's fault. I don't blame Sarabia. For me, I get frustrated when a player doesn't do anything. Sarabia got into two good positions. One was a fantastic save off the keeper's face. The other one, he should have probably done a little bit better. However, Mark Gahey and Mitchell are two fast, strong, athletic footballers. Why would you put Sarabia on that side of the pitch when he's facing two fantastic athletes that are going to bully him? Because let's face it, when he got the ball in the middle of the pitch, he was completely bullied. And Crystal Palace are a strong, fast, physical team. Now, Pablo Sarabia is an incredibly gifted footballer. If you give him time, he'll make things happen or get in positions. He's shown that. He probably should have scored. He didn't. That I'm not going to blame him for that either way. But, Nocky, how can you justify bringing in Pablo Sarabia against such a physical and strong team? We have seen Sarabia dominated by physical footballers in the Premier League for nearly 2 years now. Yet he plays against one of the most physical teams. I just don't understand.
I don't understand it. And you called it on the last podcast that he was going to play, and we had the conversation that it didn't feel like the right thing to do when a player's barely had a kick and you bring him in the game like this. There's certain games where Sarabia can play. He needs a bit of space. He needs areas to work. He needs little pockets to drop into. If you're going to play him, I mean, I don't even know where he was supposed to be playing, if I'm being honest. But if you're going to play him on the right-hand side, you're going to completely lose him. If you play him in a number 10 sort of area, or where he can connect the midfield to the attack, you'll get something from him. But he just didn't seem to have a set position. And if you're going to have him in a free role, someone's got to come across and protect that right-hand side, because every time Semedo had the ball, he had nowhere to go, and we ended up either walloping it down or cutting back inside and trying to rebuild down the left. It was a bizarre selection for me, especially because I think Guedes has had some real good moments this season. You know, he's got a few goals in the cup. He looks like he's got something about him. He's got a bit of pace. And when you're playing against teams like this, and as you said, with Gahey and Mitchell on that side, they've got some pace. Guedes is pretty fast and he's strong, and he'll occupy them if nothing else. He'll make life difficult
with an assist, so
he got an assist, whereas Sarabia is very much, if things aren't going well for him, he disappears out of a game. He will disappear very quickly. And I'm not going to knock him. I'm not his biggest fan. I've never really taken to him, but I know he was trying. I know he's trying to do what's the best he can for the club. It was just completely wrong. It almost felt like he was hung out to dry by picking him for a game like this.
Yeah, it's such a strange one. Again, I'm not gonna shoot him down, and he's certainly not the scapegoat. I know fans have blamed him. Yeah, you know what? He probably should score, but he's human. He's got in the positions. One was a fantastic save. One he did the bit, but he's hardly had any football. I expect him to be sharp. You know what I mean? It's huge pressure moments, but I would look at the manager for selecting, and as you mentioned, it's what really frustrated me is I think his selection. He did two things to Nelson Semedo. In the first half, Nelson had a lot of space on that right-hand side, and when Wolves broke, it looked like there was a ball down that channel every time.
Yeah,
Pablo Sarabia, he's never going to be down the channel. When Wolves were breaking, he had how many times could he have played it down the line, and then he's eventually having to play a hoofball because there's no option there. You put Carlos Forbes, you put Goncalo Gedge in there, you put one of those guys in there who've got an engine that can. It's such a simple combination. Now, granted, he was part of the team that did the comeback at Brighton that was fantastic, and as someone mentioned here, 2 draws with different feelings. Last week we drew, we felt like we won. This week we've drawn, we feel like we've lost. So it's in terms of those last 2 games, we're probably a point up at Brighton and 2 points down. So on the scale of those 2 games, I'd say we're probably a point down from where we probably should have been. But I don't understand the selection for that. But like I said, I'm not blaming Sarabia for that. But it is a confusing one that Gary O'Neill would select him against such a physical, strong outfit, especially that play 5 at the back that are going to be able to double up on your wide players. But a brief chat about the goals conceded again, crosses into the box, miscommunication, sloppy. They're just so weak from those positions, Nocky.
Well, he's got no one to sack now, has he? Because he's sacked the set piece coach. So who's taking responsibility for it now? I don't know if we're zonal. I don't know if we're man for man. But people have identified that we can't deal with balls swung into the box, and they get a free kick, and it's pretty simple. They just play it out wide and swing it in the box, and all right, it's a mistake. It's Larsson's tried to do the right thing. He's ended up doing the wrong thing, but it's just after that we don't react. We don't get ourselves into a defensive position. And I've never played football at a high level, but your basic would be if the ball's loose in the area, go and protect your goal line and make sure there's nothing daft coming past you. And it was just so sloppy. It was just such a disappointing goal to give away. And I'd say the second goal they scored was worse because we've done that so many times. And if you keep doing the same things and it's still not working, why on earth are you still doing it? And this is a technique that was going on back in the 80s. You flick it on, someone at the far post bangs it in. No one's gone with him. No one's watched him. No one's covered that far post. It's just dreadful. So you can make all the excuses that we want about fixtures and VAR and all that sort of stuff. If you're not doing the basics, then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot time after time. And someone's got to take responsibility for these continuous errors because it's every single game now. We just look terrified from set pieces and we just do not defend them, and we don't look like scoring them at the other end either. So it's just a horrendous combination.
Yeah, I don't think we look aggressive or organised on set plays. I remember, I don't know, shouldn't really look back, but remember it was pretty straightforward under Nuno. Willy Bolly would be on the near post and he would attack everything. Now I'm not saying the goal kick Rui Patricio was a great catcher, but we just looked organised. Then there was a plan. The big goal was on the near post. He attacked the ball. It was partial zoning, partial man to man. There's a lot of blocking, a lot of smart tactical play. There doesn't really seem to be a lot of nous from corners at the moment. We just seem to be an easy target. Now I did feel for Jose Sarr because I think he's called for it. Again, the centre forward is headed out of his hands, whether that's a confidence thing, a communication thing. But, and I'm not justifying it, Nocky, but it does feel like it is the Premier League, but it does feel like any mistake that Wolves get punished for at the moment.
I agree, yeah, but at the same time, it's avoidable. Whether he heads it out, that's the phase. The first phase has gone. Then get yourself back into shape. And we just stood around and watched him slap it in. So yes, it's a mistake we were punished from, but it's absolutely self-inflicted because despite the flick on, no one reacts to it. No one gets back and defends a goal line. No one gets out to put pressure on. It's an absolute basic. You just go and defend your goal line. Don't give anything daft away. And you are going to be punished for mistakes at this level. It's as simple as that. But when you've got to make it as difficult as you can to beat when you're in the situation that we are. You've got to be difficult to score against. You've got to be difficult to beat. And we're just not at the moment. We're so soft. It's such a soft underbelly. And, we're scoring quality goals. And we're scoring a lot of goals as well. This is, we're probably tracking way above what we've done most seasons, I would say, in terms of goals scored. Even when we were challenging for 7th, we weren't prolific, but we seem to score every week. But it's no good if you're averaging nearly 3 goals going the other way. You're just not giving yourself a chance. And we're not defending that badly in open play. I think Santi Bueno in particular has looked a top draw footballer. I think Dawson and Totti as well. We've all had comments about Totti, but I think he's been excellent the last couple of games. But it's the set pieces that are killing us. So if you're averaging nearly 3 goals a game, if you're conceding 6 goals from corners in 10 games, and that doesn't include your set pieces that you're conceding from as well, then you're just not going to give yourself a chance at all if you're not doing the basics.
Yeah, nailed it there. The basics have got to be done better. Absolutely. There's no question about that. But like I said, I do really think Wolves have been punished. Now, I've seen a comment from Twitter here. This is really, really good. I haven't really thought about this. Joe mentions there was no plan when we were 2-1 up. And this is right. And again, Nocky, this is something that's happened multiple times. 1-0 up at Villa. We didn't really seem to have a plan. 1-0 up at home against Newcastle, but wasn't really a plan. 2-1 up on Saturday evening, there wasn't really a plan. Now, I've mentioned this multiple times, and I know he'd already made the changes. If you're getting to the stage of the game where you think, well, I'm happy, we have what we hold, bring a centre-back on. I don't care if it's Alfie Pond or whoever it is. Bring a centre-back on, put 5 at the back, 3 in the middle, 2 up front, stink the place out, slow it down, slow goal kicks. Every other team does it, whether they're great or whether at the bottom, at any level of football. But we are incapable of stinking it out. There is dark arts to be played. We've seen Brentford do it over the years, multiple teams, and credit to them because it's within. You might not like it, but it's within the parameters of the laws of the game to slow it down and do things like that. But Wolves never do it. Granted, Nocky, a little bit lucky against Newcastle because there's a deflection and there's a screamer, but equally, you could have brought a centre-back on, put 3 centre-backs in a row, get this holding midfielders, stink it out, and it's a great point by Joe. We seem to carry on wanting to play when there's no real evidence of trying to kill the game or trying to defend. We're kind of sitting in the middle and doing the same thing when there isn't really a plan, as Joe said, when we do have the lead.
Yeah, he's absolutely nailed it, and you have as well. It's not just about the dark arts. I mean, I think Nuno was a master of it. We'd be winning. We'd have 10, 15, 20 left. He'd bring maybe Jota off. He'd put another one in midfield or he'd reinforce the back line and we'd just go solid, organised, and then we'd break if it came our way. O'Neill just doesn't seem to know how to win football matches. And I think he doesn't know his best 11. He doesn't know the formation that works best for us. He doesn't know how to see a game out. There's no tactical nous there, and it's a massive problem because all we seemed to do when we did go 2-1 up, just drop as deep as we could and hope we can defend the edge of the area and not concede. And you can't keep doing that. It's just again, it's repeating the same mistakes, same as the set pieces, same as the corners. We're repeating the same mistakes.
But if we are going to drop in, why not put the centre back on? Why not eat it or
drop Mario back if you want?
Exactly, put Mario back there. If we get to the point when we're going to drop in when you've got the lead, then defend it properly. Defend with numbers. There's no point defending when you've got 2 or 3 up front still. Tuck in as a unit, go 4-5-1, 4-5-1, or whatever, and make it horrible. And I'd love to see that. And no one's going to criticise anybody for stinking a game out and seeing it through because it's part of your game management. Half of the games are won when you haven't got the ball. And Wolves, I think they are capable of it, but I don't think they're being instructed to do it.
No, I mean, if it had been me, I'd have dropped Mario back and I'd have put Andre on and I'd have tried to protect the midfield and put a bit of a screen in front of the back line and just you can defend deep in that area because then you've got an opportunity to break with your Cunhas up front. But we just didn't seem to react at all, did we? We went in a bit of panic mode and I'm the first
against Liverpool, didn't we? We were winning briefly and then bang.
I'm the first to criticise him.
Sorry, we're level briefly.
Yeah, I'm the first to criticise a manager, and I know that he's I know that. I mean, personally, I don't think he's the right man for the job. I made that very clear. But there's also a level of fear in the players as well, because when you haven't won for as long as we've won, your natural state is to gonna try and drop back and just sit and defend, because you know how important those points are at this stage of the season. And when you've won one game in 20, and you can see why they'd maybe go a little bit deep, but you don't feel like you're getting that push from the bench. They're not out. They're not verbal. They don't seem to be really pushing the players into position and trying to get messages on. They just seem to go through the motions a little bit. So I just think there's so much wrong at the moment, and the panic stations whenever we go a goal up, because we're not used to being a goal up realistically, are we? So the guys just seem to panic.
Well, I mean, correct me if we've been I can't off the top of my head, but there's those 3 games that Wolves have been a goal up in, that where they've seemed to have capitulated, because, as Joe said, there isn't really a plan, and that's got to improve. I'm not really going to talk too much about Gary O'Neill, because I think there's been various surveys, Molyneux mix across Twitter. There's 90% plus fans think that's it now. So I don't think we really need to discuss that. I want to talk about the game a little bit more and get some questions in, because, I mean, you boys said it last week. I think I'm quite an optimistic person. I don't see how now there can be any justification in him continuing, but come Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, the most important thing is a Wolves fan, not my opinion or anyone else's opinion, whether he's the manager. So we shall see. But there's 2 positives, Knocker. Wolves scored 2 really good goals. You briefly spoke about them earlier on. Both good in their own ways. I mean, the ball over to Cunha, the chest. I think he beats Chalabar. He brings it in. He squares, and it's a lovely finish. I think he's nutmegged the keeper, Strand Larson. Them 2 should be combining more. That's good. And the equaliser, there's a little bit of one-touch football on the edge of the box, and João Gomez slots it home. So that part of the game, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Nocky, Wolves are showing real promise. There's a team that can carve teams open and are capable of quality at the business end.
Yeah, and I will talk about that, but I do want to go back to O'Neill briefly. And it's not a hatchet job, but there was some comments from Unai Emery about wanting to break the mould of Villa and turn them into a regular team who were overachieving. But then there's messages from O'Neill about how we can't compete and how financially we can't do this. And I think, although you're right, you can't slaughter the manager all the time. The way that he presents himself is going to filter into the dressing room and onto the pitch, and he's got a mentality that we're underdogs. He's got a mentality that we're not quite good enough to be here, and absolutely doesn't seem to accept any responsibility. And there was, the fans were chanting, "You don't know what you're doing," and there was looked like a bit of a wry smile, and I can kind of get that. He's going a little bit on defensive mode, but then some of the comments afterwards.
I think if me or you are managing Wolves, and that happened, then as a human, you're going to back yourself, aren't you? And I don't blame. I mean, people saying, "Oh, he's laughing at the fans." I don't think so. I think if a stadium is chanting that to you in such a high pressure situation, sometimes a smile or a laugh is a sign of nervousness, and that's person's worst reaction. So I'm not going to hold him up for that.
And my point is more around the way that you present yourself and the way that you talk about yourself and how you feel like your team can progress. If you tell a player he's not very good, then he's not going to be very good. Whereas if you take the Unai Emery approach and you say we can do more, we can break the mold, we can do all this, it gives you that confidence and it builds players up. But it just feels like O'Neill's always got a little bit of a downer on the squad. Yeah. But anyway, we're not going to talk too much about O'Neill because you already know my feelings on him. In terms of the goals, I thought they were both excellent. I thought that's one thing that we got absolutely spot on, was the way that we played, the fast movement. I think Santi Bueno as well, he gets the ball and he just plays an absolutely perfect ball over to Cunha, and the chest trap's superb, takes Chalabar out the game, outside of the right foot to play it into Larson. I thought he should have hit it first time, but then you see the touch that just kills the ball absolutely stone dead, brings it under control, feeds it through the keeper. Brilliant. And I think I really like Strand Larson. He's getting better and better every game. He just looks like a really good natural finisher. And it was a superb goal. And the second as well, the one-touch football, the movement, the instant cross from Guedes, and a lovely finish from Gomez. And he probably did about 500 celebrations during that as well. He was doing all sorts. It was
we all were, mate. I think we all were.
But that was the worst thing. It gave us the belief, didn't it? We started thinking, then this is it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna win the game, and it's the hope that kills you, because we ended up lobbing one in our own net, and that was it.
Yeah, absolutely. You are listening and watching episode 109 of the Wolves Report with me, Ryan Lester, and Mark Knock. We've just been through the match analysis. Now we're going to go through the team. Also, just a quick thank you to everybody watching, subscribing, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and uploaded to Spotify as well. If you aren't following to help grow the show, any likes or follows on any of the socials helps us continue the show and grow it as well, and that'll be very much appreciated. Let's go through the team, Nocky. It was kind of a bespoke 3-4-3. He said he was disappointed that he went with wing sort of five at the back at Brighton. It kind of looked like that again with Aït-Nouri. I mean, I know it's formations don't really mean a lot, but it did feel like a 3-4-3 with no right hand side other than Nelson Semedo. So I'll say it as I see it. Jose Sarr, your thoughts on his game?
It didn't have a huge amount to do, as daft as it sounds. There was the shot the Mateta hits that it's Chalabar. He's never getting near that.
He's offside anyway, though.
Yeah,
so
well, he's only offside.
It doesn't matter if it goes in because he's stood in front of the keeper, and that's definitely disallowed. Yeah,
fair enough then. But the goal he does call. I mean, obviously I couldn't hear it at the time because I was miles away from it. But the on Match of the Day, when I watched that back, it sounded like you could hear a clear call from the keeper. So I don't really blame him too much for that. The second goal, could he have come and got it? I think the flick-on's from probably the edge of the 6-yard box, but there's a lot of bodies between him and the ball, so you sort of understand why he stayed on his line. Other than that, I don't think he had a huge amount to do. A lot of efforts were blocked by the back three or back two, whichever way we were at that moment. There was a lot of good play to stop possession. I don't think he had a huge amount to do, and I don't think he had too much chance with the goals. I think they were taken out of him. So he was okay, but we shipped another 2 goals. So I suppose I'll probably give him a 6.
Yeah, there's a few people. I mean, this part of the show really took off probably 2 or 3 months ago. If you guys want to give your player ratings as well, we can get them on the screen for those watching video. Obviously, I can't read out every one of those listening on Spotify, but if you want to give your ratings as well on there, it gives us a guideline of what you think or how far we're at as well. Ricochet says 5 for Jose Sarr. I'll probably give him a 5 or a 6, a 5.5 maybe. I don't think he was that bad. Again, Wolves have conceded 2 goals, and the keeper's not really had a lot to do. Nocky, that's usually a game where you've been peppered or there's a lot going in, but Wolves have been punished for real sloppiness from balls going in the box again. Nocky, moving on to the 3 centre backs or 2 centre backs, whatever the game. For me, an unsung hero and a criminally underused player of the last year, Santiago Bueno, who just seems to be getting better and better.
Yeah, the same Santiago Bueno he was trying to farm out on loan earlier on in the season, wasn't it? I really like him. I think he looks cultured. He's never panicked. He's never seems under pressure. He's not the fastest, but he reads the game really, really well, and he gets himself into good positions. And he hit a fantastic ball for Cunha. So he's definitely top end 7, probably nudging an 8 for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think people are saying that as Paul, Somerset, Cole saying 7.5. I like Santi, and I think for someone that's quite a lean man, I think he's deceptively strong and very aggressive. I like how close he gets to his centre forward and he follows his man, and he doesn't give you an inch to turn. Yeah, I like Santi, and I think a 7.5, 8 is probably fine as well. Dawson, again, did what he had to do. I think Mateta's an absolute handful. I wish Mateta was playing for Wolves. A beast of a centre forward, but I think he did a reasonable job on him.
I agree. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, Mateta had a couple of half chances, and he had one moment where he just seemed to slalom through everyone. But Dawson was pretty solid. Didn't do a great deal wrong. Won a couple of important headers. Yeah, I was. Before you pop that up, I was on a 7 for Santi. Not quite as good for Dawson. Not quite as good as Bueno, based on the fact that he hit a really good, good raking ball that set up the equaliser for us. So yeah, I put him on a 7.
And last but not least of the 3 centre backs, if we're looking at the formation that way, Toti Gomez.
I thought he had a really good game as well. I thought obviously he got hooked, but that's generally what we do when we're trying to try something a little bit different. He's the one who pays the price. But I thought he was pretty solid. I don't think anyone really got past him. Again, I don't think he's at fault for the goals. So he's probably similar to Dawson, I'd say, with a 7.
Yeah, again, Paul says 7.5. Graham says 7.5. Yeah, again, it's crazy that we're giving our back line 7s and 8s, but what did they really do wrong? It's just
Yeah, we didn't concede from open play, did we? So when it's a
no.
set piece, it's everyone's responsibility as opposed to just the back line. So
But
for
not like
me,
that.
yeah,
I think the shape and the restriction was pretty good. Moving on to the wing backs or fullbacks, however you saw it, Nelson Semedo and Ryan Aït-Nouri. I'll start off with Nelson. Again, I thought Nelson's one-on-one marking, I think, has really improved. There's a player that's matured into a really good defender. However, I do think he was left exposed because Sarabia isn't the kind of player who's going to be able to track back with pace or strength. And that's where a Gedge who's got an engine, a Carlos Forbes who isn't strong, but he's quick and he could back him up. But not only that, I think Nelson was exposed when he had the ball because he wasn't allowed a pass in front of him, because when the ball was worked to him quickly, he'd looked up and quite often it was a punt to Strand Larsen because there was no ball down the line. So I felt the system failed Nelson because there wasn't anyone in front of him. Is that the way you saw it?
Can't argue with any of that. He was always looking for an out ball, couldn't find one. There was just nothing for him to hit. So yeah, I'd agree. I don't think he did anything wrong. 7 feels right for me.
Ryan Aït-Nouri. I wanted to bring in a comment of mine, a mate of mine, Jazz, who we spent a lot of time dissecting the game after the game when we were travelling back on the same trains together. Now, Ryan Aït-Nouri, a beautiful footballer, but not a left back. Toti Gomez, a great defender, but not a left back. And it kind of feels like Wolves don't really have a proper left back. Is that fair, Nocky? I'm going to go a bit off piste a bit, but Ryan Aït-Nouri, he's a wing back, but you can't trust him to defend. If you want to get the best out of him, you've got to let him get forward. And then there's Toti. So it feels like an area of the pitch that probably got neglected in the summer in terms of the actual left back position. But then you talk about that and say, well, what about Hugo Bueno? Is he a left back or is he similar to Ryan as well?
I was quite comfortable with that part of the pitch before the season started, to be honest, with Bueno and Aït-Nouri. Obviously, we got rid of Bueno, which I wasn't 100% on, but I suppose if you're going to use Totti over there, okay. I don't think Rand's a bad defender, to be honest. He's had Mo Salah in his pocket almost every time he's played against him. He does well on that side. But if we're talking purely on this game, I thought he had an absolute nightmare. He did about 3 times. He got into good positions and ended up.
His decision making was bad.
Yeah, he did nothing with the ball. He ended up losing possession, or he cut back and he'd trip over the ball and lose possession. I think it was one of his worst games for us. It's certainly his worst game this season because he just didn't seem to know what to do with the ball. He had an absolute nightmare. But I'm comfortable with him as I don't like him as a fullback. I think he needs to be a wing back, especially if you've got someone like Larsen who is going to feed off balls in from the wide areas. I think he's wasted if you play him as a left back. So I like him when we play a 3, so that he's got a little bit more room to play and then support Totti. I think them two work quite well together. But in terms of this game, I thought he was an absolute disaster. 4 would be top score for me, I think, and he's lucky to get that.
Yeah, I think it's frustrating when you've got a player of that ability that got into probably 2 or 3 really good positions, when quite often in football, if you simplify it, the first pass, the obvious one, is usually the right pass to play, isn't it, in football?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to overcomplicate it. And because he has that bit of flair about him, he doesn't always release the ball. And I think that was really exposed. There was a couple of times when he'd done the hard work, he dropped the shoulder, he got into the position, and it was just a little bit wasteful.
And I do think you have to accept that as well. I do think you have to accept that with a player like that he's going to be sporadic in his performances and what he offers. Sometimes he'll be brilliant and he'll beat 3 people. And I think he scored, he's got 3 this season, 2 or 3 goals this season. So yeah, he'll offer you really good performances, but you have to accept with a player like that there's going to be days that everything falls apart for him. He's in quicksand. But, for me, I think he's an absolutely superb player. And I know I've slaughtered him for this performance, but overall, I'm a massive fan of his. I think he's got potential to go a hell of a lot higher than Wolves.
Yeah, there's no doubt about the talent, sometimes the decision making, but you're right, on his day he's capable of bagging Mo Salah. Other days, and I think Joe mentioned again, he went missing at the far post for the Palace goal, so it's very, very much hit and miss. Centre midfielders Tommy Doyle and Joe Gomez. I didn't think we'd be that's a pairing that I'd see this season with having Andre and Mario as subs, but the area of the pitch that didn't do too badly.
I'm not so sure. I thought we struggled a bit in midfield, especially in the first half. I don't think Doyle had a very good game. He hit a couple of decent balls, but I did feel that we got at times a little bit overrun and exposed in that area. I thought he really struggled. I thought we looked so much better when Mario came on. He gave us some real strength in that midfield, and Doyle will hit you some good passes. He'll do some good stuff. But the first thing Lamina did, he turned and he got us up the pitch and he drove forward, and he looks like a much improved area when he was on the pitch. For me, if everybody's fit for me, Doyle's fourth or fifth choice to be on the pitch. I just don't think he's at the level that we need to get out of this. I think he's a good impact player. He can do you he can do good work for you, I think, when you're trying to maybe defend a position and you've got that out ball. But in terms of being a starter, I just don't agree with it at all. But he'd be very useful for us in the Championship next season if that's what I mean.
Oh, well, there's no need for that.
No, but I do think he'll have that about him, that he can affect games in the Championship. I think he'll do really well there. I just don't think he's at this level from what I've seen of him so far. I might be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong, but I'm not sure.
I think as with most players, he's very much horses for courses. Now, I understand why he started at Brighton, because Brighton away in the Cup, that was his best game for Wolves. He was phenomenal in that game. And then he probably wasn't as good in the league game, but he played his part in the pivotal moment. He's 4-on-1. He's positioned himself, and he's played a part in that. So I understand. But as we mentioned about Sarabia, for a physical, strong team that have pace and strength, and we saw the difference that Mario made. He came on. He looked like he had a point to prove. I like Tommy Doyle. I think Brighton was the game for him. I think Brighton in the Cup was for him. I don't think that the game at home against a very physical team is the game for him. I want him when he's going to have a bit more time to play on the ball. Brighton will let you play there. They don't have the kind of players that are going to squeeze in there. Equally, they're going to play. They're going to let you play. That's just who they are. Palace, not so much, and you're right.
Where do you see him? Where do you see him in the pecking order? I mean, I'm not talking about who we're playing. I'm talking. You look at Andre, you look at Gomez, you look at Lamina, you look at Tommy Doyle, Boubacar when he's fit. Where would you see him? Which choice is he for you?
I mean, peak Mario Lamina is first name on the team sheet but we've not seen enough of that Mario this season. Joe Gomez again, but I think Joe Gomez briefly in a 2 is much better than
quality.
A 3.
Is obvious though, isn't it, for him?
Yeah, I can't really. I think he's joint choice with Boubacar. I think Andre's been treated very harshly. He's won Player of the Month. Everyone's wooed by how good he was. Granted, he didn't have a great game at Brentford. Nobody had a good game in Brentford. But after that, he's been binned. And I think Andre, you don't hold for Brazil if you're rubbish. I think he's been very harshly treated. So for me, Tommy Doyle at the moment, he doesn't start in the Wolves' best 11. I can't give you a pecking order place because it depends on if we're playing Fulham or Brighton or somebody like that. It's a little bit different to playing someone that's gonna hammer you in the centre of the park. But I think my only answer to that would be he wouldn't be my starting 11 knock if it was my choice.
And that's the key for me. And I think when you compare him to Andre and what Andre is able to give you, it allows the rest of your midfield to push forward because he's going to protect the back line. I just don't see that with Doyle. I'm not sure. He's got a very good range of passing. He's competitive.
He's a wonderful footballer.
Yeah, he's competitive. He really cares as well. You can see that he's desperate to win. I just don't think the quality is compared. I think that's probably one of our strongest areas is our midfield. I don't see that level of quality from him. So there's definitely a player there, and he's still young and he'll develop. But the way we are at the moment, I put him way down the pecking order, definitely beneath the 3 that we'd expect.
Is it though, Nocky? Because I would say, in terms of technical ability, he's probably our best with the ball. Him and Andre are superior to the rest in terms of their talent on the ball. I just think that Tommy Doyle doesn't have the physical attributes or the engine that Mario or Joe or Andre have. And I think that's the thing in the Premier League, that unless you are an immaculate footballer, you need that physical strength and the engine in midfield. And I think because Tommy's a beautiful footballer, but if there's a ball in behind him, he's toast. Whereas Andre or Joe Gomez or Mario can get out of trouble sometimes.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, but I think Gomez is very, very good with his feet. I think he's got great feet. He takes the ball on. He can move past players. Lamina, you've seen the way he turned and the pace that he showed that he can get away. Andre's very much he'll do the horrible stuff and then he'll lay the ball off. But also we've seen him pick the ball up and then drive through midfield. I don't think Doyle's got that about him. I think he's always looking for a 40, 50-yard ball and it's not always on for us. So I just think if you're an opposition side looking at us, you'd want Tommy Doyle playing against you as opposed to any of the others that are in that area. And I think that's probably key to it for me.
Fair enough. Moving on to Joe Gomez. I mean, it's such a simple tactical switch, but the difference in Joe Gomez when he's played in a 2 as compared to playing in a 3 for probably a couple of months, the difference in that guy in a 2 is remarkable. And I think this is probably his best game of the season on Saturday.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really like him. I think this time next season he could walk into any team in that division because he's so good on the ball. He's so cultured. He's got a real understanding of the game. He's physical in the tackle. He gets stuck into everything, but he also knows when to drop back and pick up space and move the ball. He's just a very, very good player. And the finish isn't easy either because it's coming at him with pace from Guedes. He's got no time to really react. So to steer it in the way he did was fantastic. And we saw it. It's probably his best performance for Wolves. The only one similar to that was the Spurs performance last season when he got 2 goals and controlled the game. So I think he's excellent. I think he's certainly one of the best players at the club. And if I'm rating him, it's probably 8, nudging a 9, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, Carl Whitehouse says 8.5, and I would agree with that. Sometimes you think players look tired and then he gets stuck and he beats 3 players and then does it and then drops a tackle in and then he supports to score as well. So, yeah, fantastic. Moving on to the front 3, I'll start off with Pablo Sarabia. I think people have been quite harsh on Pablo, but he doesn't pick himself. Should he do better in those 2 positions? I think he fluffed his lines on the first one. I think on the second one, it's a brilliant save.
He should score, though.
Yeah,
I mean, he's made it easy for the keeper, hasn't he? He's just hammered it at him, and rather than just place it in the net.
I think you have to be hitting the target, and he did that. But you're right, a player of his talent. But I think he's a victim of the system and being selected because, again, as we mentioned earlier on, the physicalness and the strength, it doesn't really give him a chance because you stand next to him, he gets bullied. If you're allowed to play, he'll dictate a game. Palace do not let you do that. So I think Sarabia is a 4, Nocky. Moving on to Mateus Cunha, Nocky.
Just quality, isn't he? It probably wasn't one of his best games, and you probably don't see everything he does. And it was only when I rewatched it on Match of the Day that you saw some of the stuff that he actually did and some of the passes and the movement, and the assist for the goal was superb as well, to be calm enough to chest trap it past the defender and just slide it perfectly in. It was excellent. He's such a good footballer, and again, I think he's one of those who wouldn't look out of place in a top 4 team. Certainly, he's top draw. So yeah, 8 for me comfortably.
Yeah, very, very good performance. I've talked about this for a long time, but I want excuse me, Cunha and Strand Larsen linking a lot more. Now, while I have a coughing fit, Nocky, tell me about Strand Larsen.
I thought it was his best game for us because one thing I've been a little bit critical of is his physical attributes. He doesn't seem to put himself around enough, and he's a big lad. He seemed to do that. He held the ball up a lot better. He was physical. He was dominating the defenders, which is difficult to do when you're up against those kind of players. And I thought that the finish was excellent, to have the composure to control the ball and then feed it through the goalkeeper's legs. I thought it was a really, really good performance. So probably, I don't think it was quite as good as Cunha because Cunha dropped deep and picked up a lot of space and drove us forward. He sat in the right areas, but he's certainly an 8 for me based on that performance. And he's one of them that if you give him the supply line, he'll score your goals. He'll get in double figures for you, which is why we need to be playing with a little bit more of an expansive shape. But yeah, I really like him, as I said earlier, and I think he's young, he's developing, and I can only see him getting better.
Absolutely. Carl White has mentioned his last ones and that he need more service.
Yeah.
When you put crosses in the box, whether it's across the face of goal, whether you're squaring, he needs more service. Considering Wolves are a team at the bottom of the Premier League, the numbers that Strand Larsen and Cunha have are very good. They're not that other side who are bottom of the league. Moving on to the second part of the show, Nocky, we've analysed the game, we've given the player ratings. Now, Wolverhampton Wanderers, for me, Nocky, this is a self-inflicted mess. You've often talked about on the show that Wolves are circling the drain. It's never felt... This, for me, now feels worse than before Lopetegui took over.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you only get away with it for so long, don't you? You can't keep selling your best players and then bringing in substandard replacements. And I don't mean that as any level of disrespect, because I think Rodrigo Gomez, if we were to stay in the division, he stays at Wolves. I think 3 years from now, you're probably in a Neto situation where you're knocking back some big offers for him. But when you're in the position we're in, you need players to come in and make an impact. So when you sell a Neto, which I thought was the right thing to do with his injury record, I had no problem with it. And with the Max Kilman, we got good money for Kilman. I thought that was the right thing to do because it was an opportunity to improve the squad. But then you just bring in substandard or no replacements, really. We were relying on Mosquera, who we didn't know what kind of impact he was going to have. And I get it. It's not cheap running a football club, and we've got that self-sufficient model, but since we kind of officially went self-sufficient, we've just seen a massive drop in quality. We've seen the players that would walk into any team, João Martinez, Ruben Neves, Raul Jimenez, Adama, players like that, you've seen them slowly disappear and you've replaced them with substandard replacements. And Southampton used to do it. They used to bring in cheap, sell players big, and then go again. Catches up with you, caught up with them, and unfortunately it's caught up with us as well, and we just haven't got that quality that we used to have to get us out of trouble. But saying that, I do think there's still some very, very good players at this club, and I think a different manager could keep us up. I think a different manager gives us an opportunity to climb the league. So it's a culmination of things. But there's so many wrong decisions. The atmosphere at Molineux is awful now. There was 29,500. I think there was less than that, if I'm being completely honest. There was empty seats everywhere. They've priced people out. Molineux a few years ago would have been absolutely poisonous when we went a goal down in a game like that, when you feel like it's probably the game that relegates you. But there was almost an acceptance in there. Everything's expensive. The grounds just seems to be falling to bits. And, my lad's got his first ever season ticket this year. It's cost me the best part of $1,000 for the two of us. And he's sitting in a seat with no leg room. It's just it's just been a culmination of neglect, I think, is the best way I describe it. There's been neglect on and off the field, and it's resulted in the situation we're in now, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, when the fans have been treated like they have in terms of the tickets and the season tickets via Jeff Shee's decision, there is little sympathy or understanding. In fact, the level is raised because, as I tweeted earlier on today, if you are charging Champions League prices for Championship football, people aren't going to accept it, and it's not acceptable. Because have Wolves been unlucky? Yes. Is the team underperforming? Yes. Have you kept selling the best players and expect to carry on but charge you more money? Yes. Fans are going to be upset. Like I said, you and your lad, over $1,000. Me, I go with my mum, way over $1,000. We're paying a lot of money at the moment, and they love talking about the product. Yeah, well, at the moment, the price of the product isn't much. We're not getting the quality for that at all. Absolutely nowhere near it. But
I think I'll be really interested in your thoughts on this. If Wolves are relegated, what's the season ticket prices next season? Because I don't think there'll be much of a drop. I honestly don't. I don't think he'll drop it much at all.
Well, unfortunately, Jeff already said there's a price freeze for next year, so he'll be the same again. But would they say, well, actually, there's more games, so we're going to charge you that again? I don't know. I mean, I know it feels really close to it, but the thought of being in the Championship again from this position with these players, I just think they're underachieving so much, Nocky. I just think this squad is capable of so much more. And granted, we haven't replaced like for like for Neto. We've not placed like for like for Max Kilman. Wolves have taken a lot of punts for the future, like not signing Adam Webster and signing Andre feels to me more of a business decision than a football decision, when actually we needed a centre-back, even though everyone at the club told John Percy they were delighted with the centre-back situation. Read into that whatever you want. But I just feel at the moment they're so obsessed with making the money on the transactions as opposed to improving the team. This is the year that they could be really punished for that.
Yeah, and I think the problem you've got is we've got so many money men at the club as opposed to football men, and I think that they very much rely on Hobbs, and I'm not sure he's fit for purpose. So there's a real lack of understanding of what's required, and I think they looked at it and they saw the three teams coming up and thought, we'll comfortably be better than three of those. And I know you still think we've got enough to get up, but we're a quarter of the way through the season. We haven't won a game and we got 3 points. It's a massive ask to win probably the 11, maybe 12 games we need to stay in the division. And, we'll still be there next year if we get down. It is what it is. At least we know VAR. But it will feel like such a waste of the last sort of 7 years if we do that.
All the good work being done. I think, Knockett, I think 10 wins keeps Wolves up.
But we haven't won in 20 games. We've won in 20 games, haven't we?
I'm not saying we will. I think 10 wins for any team at the bottom keeps them up easily. Because
I wouldn't argue with that.
Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton, Wolves. I'm going to put Everton in the conversation. They've lost at Southampton. I think that's your 5. Are Wolves currently the team at the moment that are underachieving the most with the squad? I would definitely say so. Are Wolves to blame? Is it self-inflicted, as this section is called? Yes, because they should have signed a centre-back in the summer. And I'm not moaning about signing Andre. I think he should be in the team. I think he's a fantastic footballer.
Great.
But what Gary O'Neill has done is try to accommodate João Gomez, Mario Lemina and Andre. And they're not 3 midfielders you can play in the 3, because you need one of them should be a holder and then the other 2 are box to box. Those 3 are not those players. So by accommodating all 3, it's cost Wolves and knocked them out of sync, when he should have been brave enough to pick 2 from the 4 and then rotate. Because if you've got that quality, you can play for 60 minutes, bust your guts, and then you're bringing on Andre's knackered, bring Tommy Doyle on. João Gomez is knackered, bring Mario on. Mario's knackered, bring João Gomez on. It's quite straightforward, but I don't think the manager had the courage to do that, and instead he's tried to accommodate. And for me, that's why Wolves have dropped off as well and not won a game.
Yeah, I think they're all really fair points, and it's poor management with 10 games in. I don't think he knows his best team, and I don't think he knows who to bring in to kind of solidify us. I agree. I think I can almost see a 4-3-3 with those all in it, where you play Andre as holding and then you play Lemina and Gomez just slightly.
We ain't got a proper left back to play that formation. You've got to have a proper left, because Ain't Nori, for all his quality there, the best. There's no point asking Ain't Nori to sit back and be a left back. There's no point playing him. You want that guy to be wandering off doing his magical things, because when it goes, like I said, his goal involvements are phenomenal for a left back. There's no point asking him to play left back in that situation, because we'll get hammered on the left hand side.
Yeah, I don't think it's his best position, but I don't see why he can't play there, especially if you've got Andre who can drop back and then you can maybe push Totti or whoever you're playing there across to support that area. Then if you've got Guedes, probably Strand Larsen and Cunha in the 3 up front, you're giving yourself a little bit of an option to pin them back with anyway. But I just think he's only really got 2 systems, it feels like to me, and neither of them really are working, and he doesn't have the courage to stick to his convictions and really push that kind of system and really back himself. So I think we're rotten. I think as a club we're rotten at the moment. We're rotten from the top down, and the silence from Jeff and Fosun is incredible, really.
Just jump in with that, Knocky, in terms of the silence from Jeff, and I am not sticking up for Jeff, so please nobody quote that. In this situation, if he comes out, he gets hammered, he gets stayed. If he talks, he gets hammered. If he stays quiet, he gets hammered. I just think in these situations, he's better off saying nothing, because no matter what he says, he's going to get absolutely battered.
He's a chairman of the club, though. I mean, you've got to be vocal. I mean, you can't just switch off because you're worried you're going to get some hurty words shouted at you. Again, same with O'Neill. Stand up, be brave, and take it on the chin and say, explain to us why we're in this position, explain to us why we're in this situation. And if you can put some science behind the situation, maybe people will back off you a little bit. But when you're not saying anything, you almost feel like you're sticking 2 fingers up to the fans.
Knocky, do you really think that Jeff Shee is going to sit down with a local reporter, whether it's written, press, is he going to sit there and answer one-on-one questions? It's never going to happen.
100% he will, because let's be honest,
He's not going to sit with the local media without Matt Hobbs. That's why John.
Yeah, but most of our local media are line towers, aren't they? Let's be completely honest. They'll all toe the line.
Let's forget about them. Let's talk about the chairman. There is no way in a million years he sits down in a one-on-one situation, being allowed to be interviewed, asking whatever questions that the local press want. Not a chance he would do that. Not a chance.
But why does he have to sit down and have a conversation with him? Why can't he have some kind of communication with the supporters? It doesn't involve him being interviewed one-to-one. There's plenty of people who'll interview him or give him a nice, easy ride. But there's opportunities for him to maybe.
But there's no point in that. We want proper answers, because we are in a situation. And again, just going back to the Fosun stuff, I don't expect any owner of any club to spend their own money. I expect you to run the club well and make good decisions. That's not happening. I don't. If Fosun don't want to spend their own money more, that's fine. If you're going to be self-sufficient, that's fine. But to do that, your recruitment has got to be bang on. Your planning and your strategy has got to be bang on. From the manager, the director of football, and your recruitment, it's just not happened. So at the moment, it is a complete mess, because I think without the reliance of George Mendes and Gestifu, when we got those players in the Championship, we had European football, an FA Cup semi-final, European quarter-final. Without the help of George Mendes, for me, my opinion, Jeff Shee looks lost without him.
Yeah, he needs that support, doesn't he? I think, I'm not sure Fosun have got too much interest left in Wolves. I feel like if they could get rid of us now, they probably would.
It does feel like that.
And the fact that you've still got Matt Hobbs, you've still got Jeff Sheen, you've still got Gary O'Neill at the club speaks volumes for the ambition of the owners. Because we said before that they wouldn't want Wolves to be relegated, they'll lose a lot of money, and that's absolutely true. But I think they'd also look and think, well, we've met more than we paid for the club if we sold them even in the Championship, and with the players we've got available to sell, we'll get a big chunk of our money back anyway. So it almost feels like they're kind of letting us die. And I'm not saying that's the case, but that's kind of what it feels like at the moment when you look at all we're trying to do is make as much money as we possibly can. If that involves a half-empty Molineux, but everyone's paying double the price, then fantastic. They're still getting their money's worth out of us. So there's a huge divide. There's a lack of communication, and there's no. It feels like a hopeless situation at the minute because you're getting no guidance from the people who should be feeding into us. I mean, we used to have Laurie Dalrymple, who was brilliant. He used to come out, he'd speak, he'd give you that comfort and that reassurance.
That season under Nuno, obviously the football that he's talking, but he built the bridge with the fans again. Just the little gestures, the pints here, the talking out. There was a man that was a link between the club custodians and the fans, and it worked. And ever since his departure, granted, there were some good times, but in terms of the communication and the bridge between the club and the fans, it's gone further and further apart. I mean, quite often, football and the success it brings does that naturally. There has been a decay in the football quality, which has also resulted in the link and the harmony between supporters and the club custodians is I'd say it's easily as low as it's been under Fosun's tenure so far.
Yeah, and it's, with Dalrymple, it was easy when we were winning, wasn't it? So it's how we would have reacted if things started going wrong for us. But it felt like at that point we had a good link between the players, the management, the owners, and the supporters. They seemed to be mingling quite well. And I get what you're saying about Jeff wouldn't want to be interviewed, but it just feels like the silence is deafening at the moment. We don't seem to know what the future is, what the plans are. And my fear is if we do go down, there's going to be an absolute fire sale, and it's almost catastrophic if we were to be relegated. So
yeah,
hopefully we don't get to that, but it just feels like, again, we've gone from circling the drain to absolutely plummeting straight down the middle of it.
Absolutely. Before we move on to a few questions, we are 58 minutes into episode 109 of the Wolves Report with Mark Knock and myself, Ryan Lester. Hope you're enjoying on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Spotify when it's uploaded. Please give us a click or a like on any of those platforms, whichever you're watching from. It would be much appreciated. Just one quick comment regarding Wolves getting relegated. We saw previously when Wolves, there was a World Cup that kind of saved Wolves when they paid whatever they had to pay for Lopetegui to come in. He came in, Mario Lemina, Craig Dawson, those guys came in, and that combination of them and Lopetegui saved Wolves. I do believe that Wolves would invest to protect their product coming. I don't know what would have changed. I do believe, I mean, we talked about this in a podcast a few weeks ago. I think if it really hit the fan and they had to invest, I do believe that they would try and protect their product. Would it be a guarantee? Would it be too late? Maybe, I don't know. But I do think come January, the ammunition would be there to do something. Nocky, let's move on to a couple of questions. I hope you can overrun her a bit, Nocky, because we're on an hour. I know you're up early in the morning, spending 2 weeks in Dubai in your 5-star hotel because that's how you roll. Steve Lees asked a great question. Slightly left field, but in terms of the summer additions, how would you rate them out of 10 in terms of improving the team so far? Well, great question, Steve, but unfortunately, there's only Strand Larsen. And I don't mean this is a slight to Strand Larsen, but Wolves haven't had a centre forward since really Raoul. So he's come in. I think Strand's done a good job, links the play. He looks like he's a great box player to score goals. But Nocky, other than Strand Larsen, who would probably give, for a team bottom of the league and the numbers he has, I'm probably going to give Strand an 8 so far for the season he's had. I do like him, and I think you put more. I do think he's still been starved of service, but other than Strand Larsen, of the summer signings, what have we seen?
I think Strand Larsen's certainly been the pick. Andre, there's no doubt in my mind he'll be back in the first team on a regular basis, probably by Christmas. I'd be amazed if it takes longer than that. So I think he'll prove to be a success. Johnston, didn't want him, still don't want him. Rodrigo Gomez, probably 2 seasons away. And we've signed that the French defender as well, haven't we? And he's
Bastien Mapier, yeah.
He's injured, so it's hard to judge on him. So I think we've got 2 good ones, and everyone else was meh. They're irrelevant.
I mean, just looking through, give my take on it. Carlos Forbes, I love pace. I think he's a bit raw. I don't think he's
a season away, you know.
Yeah, I don't think he's been used enough. Again, I think he should have started on Saturday against Palace. When you put him in front of Nelson Semedo, he's someone that wants to cut inside. He'd have, even with his presence like he did in the second half, he doesn't even have to have the ball, but their fullback or wing back or left centre back knows he can get it behind you, and it would naturally push them back to respect him. Strand Larsen, again, I like him. Bastien Mepayu, we don't know about yet. Tommy Doyle, well, he was already here, but it's on 5 million. Pedro Lima, again, 2 years off. Sam Johnson, so far, I don't want to be critical because I think he'll be in goal on Saturday if he's fit, but it looks like Wolves have paid 10 million for a keeper that isn't as good as the one we've already got, but I'd be delighted to be wrong. Rodrigo Gomez, not seen enough. Brilliant pre-season. And Andre, I don't understand how Andre is in the team. You don't hold for Brazil and not be starting for Wolverhampton Wanderers in this predicament. Steve Lees, thank you for your question, as always. A double header here. Richard Holmes and Christopher Whippy both ask, should Wolves choose to sack Gary O'Neill, how much do you trust the club in replacing him as a coach? Well, I put a tweet out earlier on, Nocky, so people have read my opinion. What about yours?
I don't trust them in the slightest. And we kind of spoke about this a couple of podcasts ago, that I don't think it would be the Moyes or the Potter. I think we'd be in the Steven Gerrard pool. So I've got absolutely no faith in them to replace him. But to be honest, at this stage, I want anyone except for O'Neill, so harsh as it sounds, because I just think that we need a change. We need something to be different. So I've got no faith in them. I mean, look at some of the decisions they've made. They've got away with it a couple of times with Nuno and with Lopetegui, but we've also had, we went for Michael Beale, we went for Walter Zenga. So the track record isn't great, is it?
Well, I would have them down for their managers so far. I would say 2 of the managers they've appointed have been successes, obviously Nuno. And I would say, as much as he annoyed me with the way he held on, Lopetegui was a success because his job was to keep Wolves in the Premier League. He succeeded. So their track record so far of all the managers is 2, which isn't particularly great. So do I trust them? No. If it's a Gerrard, Lampard, Edwards kind of character, I just don't see. If Wolves are serious, if the custodians are serious about keeping Wolves in the Premier League, then it has to be a Potter. I know people won't like Moyes in terms of his style, but I'm interested in keeping Wolves in the Premier League. Moyes, Potter, someone proven in the Premier League. Conceição has been mentioned, left Porto, proven winner, got maybe suited to some of the players they've got. I don't know. Do I trust them, Richard and Chris? no, it's more hope that they get it right than anything else. Thank you for being part of the show. H, when will Wolves next win a game of football? Saturday afternoon, 3:00, be at Molineux to see Wolverhampton Wanderers' first win of the season against Southampton. It sounded positive, but I'm saying that through a couple of glasses of red wine. Nocky?
Probably when we sack O'Neill.
Oof, won't be on Saturday then because he's still going to be there. Got to win at some time. Why can't we win on Saturday? Let's have one more question before we move on to the weekend. Paul, if we stay up with or without O'Neill, we'll be having this conversation this time next year.
Yes.
It just feels that way, doesn't it, Nocky? Great question, Paul. It just feels that way because it's very much feels like a constant bot's job. 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, winging it. And as I mentioned on Twitter earlier on, if you're cutting off corners, you're going to keep going around in circles. And at the moment, that's exactly what's happening. And cutting the corner and trying to make a profit and selling your best players has all kept up with Wolves, has all caught up with them. So, yeah, I do think we'll be in this situation next year. Should we have one more question, Nocky, before we move on to the weekend? Let's go. Jeremy Skidmore asks, surely there are surely the number one priority when if they choose a manager is how he's an expert on defending. We were okay midfield and attack, but pathetic at the back. But we're okay with centre backs, Nocky. They were okay with the recruitment in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've spoken about this. The open play situation. There's been a couple of mares, hasn't there, mainly at Brentford, but the centre backs we've got now, I don't think are too bad. It's the set pieces we need to work on. So we need someone to organise us. There's quality in that team. You know, they're not going to pull up any trees. They're not going to finish in the top 7, but there's some quality in there that's enough to stay in the division. You've just got to organise them. I think if you get someone to organise them, get the defence organised, get better organisation from set pieces, make us more of a threat in the attacking third from set pieces, you give yourself a chance. But I don't see that with O'Neill because we do the same things week in, week out, and it doesn't change.
Yeah, with the set plays, it feels
they're wretched,
like
aren't they? They're absolutely wretched.
There's not a lot of, I mentioned this earlier in the show, there's not a lot of aggression. Some people are zonal, some people are man-to-man. There's people tapping in at the far post all the time. It's just an easy same goal. Nathan Collins is scoring from a header after 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. But we're getting to the very end of episode 109 of the Wolves Report. Mark Knock and myself, Ryan Lester, have answered your questions, give the match analysis. Wolves, my dog's having a cough and I think he wants to go outside. He probably had enough talking about Wolves. Nocky, this game is Gary O'Neill's biggest game as Wolves manager, and it's also Wolves' biggest game in a very long time. Not only do I think if Wolves lose on Saturday, is it curtains for O'Neill, I also think it's probably curtains for Wolves' season. And that might sound like a ridiculous thing to say after 11 games, but the confidence blow of losing to Southampton at home, I'm not sure this squad will recover from that.
Yeah, they have to win. I mean, if we don't win, he has to be sacked. There's no other decision that could be made because then you've got the international break to bring somebody else in. I mean, I'd have sacked him after Chelsea myself, but I think there's you can't survive this one, surely. It is an absolute must-win. I mean, I think Palace was a must-win myself. I think the damage was massively done against Palace, but there's no doubt in this one. There's no messing around. You've got to get 3 points. Nothing else will do. No excuses.
People might disagree and I might be wrong. I think he gets the next 2 games, Nocky.
Even if we lose Southampton? Surely not. Surely not.
I think he gets the next 2 games.
That's you're verging on.
I'm not saying I agree, and you know how optimistic I am and thinking he'll turn the corner. I'm just saying that you've gone through those spell of games, you've backed your man, and I think they're going to want to give him an opportunity. I mean, Matt Hobbs is massively going to die or fall on his sword here because he's sticking his neck out massively, whether he's convincing Jeff that he's the man to keep him staying because he was Matt Hobbs' recruit. Gary's had a contract extension. There's a lot on here for Matt Hobbs' reputation going forward. So I do think Wolves will win Saturday, though. I can't help myself, whether it's the wine, whether it's my golden black heart beating. I don't know, Nocky. I do think Wolves will win on Saturday.
I think it's neglect. I think if they don't sack him after... I mean, it's neglect already. He should have been sacked weeks ago, but it's absolute neglect if we don't win this and they keep him in a job. That would be awful. Absolutely awful if they do that. Because how do you recover from that? How do you turn up in your next game after you've just been beat by Southampton and Gary O'Neill's still sat in the dugout?
Away at Fulham.
Away at
After
Fulham.
I mean, how long will that 2 weeks be? If Wolves have lost to Southampton, how long that 2 week? I mean, luckily, Nocky, you're in your 5-star accommodation, having your massages and your cocktails and your prawns and whatever you're doing. But how long will that 2 weeks be if Wolves lose that game? It will stink. But anyway, in the last 2 games, Nocky, when Wolves have been chasing, they've played the best. Yes, it's been a bit chaotic. Yes, it's been a bit crazy, but 4-2-3-1, having a go. Wolverhampton Wanderers look a far more comfortable team than they do playing slow ball like they did in the first half at Brighton and in the first half against Palace.
Yeah, I'll go 4-2-3-1. I'd take Sarabia out and bring Guedes in on the right-hand side to give us a little bit more pace. Obviously, you're playing Cunha and Larson up there. I just think we need pace in this game, whether it's Forbes, just to give us a little bit of an opportunity to stretch them. But it has to be 4-2-3-1. I would go Lamina and Gomez in midfield. I know we've been calling for Andre, but I thought Lamina's performance was good.
Excellent when he came on.
Yeah, I'll bring him in. And then you're looking probably Dawson and Bueno as your 2 main centre halves, I'd say.
Semedo, right back. Aït-Nouri, left back. I do think he'll, especially with, I mean, I know Strand Larsen's had it out of his hands. I think as soon as Johnson's fit, I think he starts. I think he's made that clear in the press conferences. I'm not saying I agree with it. But equally, Nocky, I don't care who starts in goal or up front or at left back or who comes on the podcast. I just want Wolves to win on Saturday afternoon. That's all that matters. And one thing I want to really stress now, people can do whatever they want. Come Saturday afternoon, Gary O'Neill's still going to be the Wolves manager. And a lot of people, including me, you and Tyler and many people that have been on here, don't think he should be in that position. But the most important thing from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon is to get behind that team, because as much as we are angry with the manager and disappointed with the board and the decisions, the backing of that team is the most important thing on Saturday afternoon, because losing the game might sack the manager, but it almost puts a nail in Wolves' coffin of relegation. A win on Saturday afternoon is really important, and they're not going to do that without the full backing of the fans. The one thing I would say at the moment, I'm disappointed with the decisions, I'm disappointed with the manager, I'm disappointed with the board. I'm not over disappointed with the players because I still think they're hurting and they've given it all, and we need to be behind them on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree, but I think there's so much pressure on the game. I think Molineux will be relatively flat. I think the atmosphere is going to be okay, but it's going to be governed by the performance of the team. So if ever we go a goal down, I think you'll see Molineux turn instantly. And I think if we're performing well and we're on the front foot and we're putting them under a bit of pressure, then you'll see a decent atmosphere. But the amount of pressure on this game, I just think it's going to be nervous, tetchy, and I don't think there's going to be a great deal of noise, in all honesty, unless we get ourselves in a position where we're a couple of goals up.
What I would say is, as well, from Gary O'Neill's comments last week, his version of full throttle and my version of full throttle, they're two different things. There is nothing but a full throttle, full aggression, angry, passionate, thunderous tackles, snotted in the midfield, getting at them early doors. This is not a time for taking your time and being patient. Wolves need to take the game to Southampton and get at them, because that's the only way Wolves are going to win a game of football. Yeah,
I agree. You get at them, you put them under pressure. I mean, they're a poor side. They're a championship side. I know they beat Everton, but Everton...
I watched the highlights. Everton had so many chances.
Yeah, Everton are pretty hopeless as well, and they're absolutely dreadful. So you play front foot football, you put them under pressure, you make them play our version of the game, and you just get into them, and you show a little bit of pride, and you reach down and you find your pair of cojones, and you push forward and you try and go and win the game. And if you do go a goal up, you don't panic and start dropping back and getting defensive, and you just keep the pressure up and you bury them, because I know they've won a game, but their confidence is shot as well. And if we can get an early goal and then we can add to that and we go a couple of goals up, which I believe the quality-wise, man for man, we've got better players than them, and we do score goals. So get yourself a goal or two and then just keep that pressure on and you can run them over. My fear is we don't get that early goal, we don't score, and suddenly we're under a little bit of pressure and the ground gets a little bit sticky and a little bit dodgy in the atmosphere, and then it becomes a more difficult game then. But the key is getting to them from the first moment and get yourself an early goal.
Wolves have got to back themselves on Saturday. I don't think they back themselves. I don't think the manager backed themselves in a formation to go and get at Palace, particularly in the first half. I don't think they can do that on Saturday. Wolves need to get at them. I think Gary knows he's very much at last chance saloon. Regardless of what I said, I think he might have the 2 games. Wolves have got no excuses. I want to see full throttle, play an attacking team. And I believe that if you go toe-to-toe, 9 times out of 10, you win that game. If you invite a team on being overcautious, you're going to give them chances. I want to go firepower for firepower. Strand, Larson and Cunha, for me, yeah, they can win that game. Wolves might concede, but I believe we can outgun them. Nocky, I hope I've bigged you up to a big prediction for your show for Picks You Up. Prediction v Wolverhampton Wanderers v Southampton. First goal scoring prediction, please.
I genuinely think it's going to be 1-1.
Oh,
but
you shit
I can't do it because we have
You've
to
got
win
to
the
do
game.
it.
So
You're not going to be on holiday. Just lie to me.
I'll go 2-1 to Wolves. I think Adam Armstrong scores first.
Terrible liar.
I just don't trust him. I just don't trust him as a manager to get us the games you have to win. I just don't trust him, and I really, really hope I'm wrong, but I just have a fear.
Excellent. Well, there's egg all over my face. I'm going to go Wolves 3, Southampton, Neil and Cunha. This has been episode 109 of the Wolves Report. Thank you, as always, to Mark Knock. I've been your host, Ryan Lester. See you next week. Up the Wolves.